It might be hard to believe, but for the first time since the end of February, it is time to go back in the wrestling time machine to the year 2001 and backtrack to the invasion. But for anybody who knows how this season has gone so far, or this series has gone so far, it has been nothing like the invasion in real life, and has been an invasion all its own. Or an angle, I should say, or a story all its own, different than the real life invasion storyline. And now we hit one of the benchmarks in the series, and that is another pay-per-view. And I call this pay-per-view a benchmark because, in no uncertain terms, it is a benchmark because every pay-per-view thus far has been a benchmark in this series. As we move forward down the line of the invasion. But also, since I actually legitimately have not touched this season since the end of February, this little bit of a refresher is just as much a refresher for me as it is for you. But now I remember for the most part everything that's going on, so with that being said, let's jump into King of the Ring 2001. And we start with the WWF Women's Championship match, with Chyna defending against Lita, and Lita finally getting the win over Chyna in surprise fashion. Fine, Chyna. The reason why that thing is up already is because I have show limits turned off, or whatever the fuck it's called. But I keep forgetting to turn it back on. I think I'm gonna let the Dudleys win, but let's just see. Supply and demand by DQ. Supply and demand. Yeah, I'm gonna let the Dudleys win. Because it's been it's been somewhat one-sided in recent weeks with this feud. So I'm gonna let the Dudleys win this match. For those of you who don't know because you didn't watch or hadn't been watching, or whatever the reason might be, these two, for one, have been wrapped up in somewhat of a very competitive Kevin Owens AJ Styles-esque feud in recent weeks. In recent weeks, and it all comes to a head tonight with Kurt Angle saying it officially that this has nothing to do at this point with him becoming Intercontinental Champion. It has everything to do with him proving why he is better than Chris Jericho. But I'm also going to make it a gimmick match, so yeah. If you want to also know where The Undertaker is in this situation, The Undertaker got attacked a few weeks ago, and that left Kane to fend for himself in this tag team title, in this what would have been a tag team title match against Edge and Christian, after Taker was taken out by a mystery assailant, who later would take out Triple H a few weeks, I want to say a few weeks later, or maybe a week later, or whatever it was. I forget. Yeah, it was 2 weeks after Taker. It was 2 weeks after Taker because Taker was the night after Judgment Day. Yeah, right here. Taker was the night after Judgment Day, and then Hunter was 2 weeks later. And we have a mystery attacker on our hands taking out WWF superstars. But now it's also, in this case, time to focus on one feud that has been going on for the last couple of months. And that is Chris Benoit against Steve Austin for the WWF title. And yes, part of me wanted to book Austin to lose to Benoit, but then I realized maybe that's not a good idea. And maybe I should just go the route of booking Austin to win and keeping the belt on him. Finding somebody else to beat Austin for the title. And now we move to the match after the chosen gimmick. We have Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle, non-title, who's the better man, 30 minutes, Iron Man match. Now we have William Regal with, let's see if I can actually surprise myself and remember everybody that's in the end of the that is in the tournament right now. Is it him? I know it's Jeff Hardy. I know it's Test. Yeah, it's Perry Saturn. Okay, so it's Perry Saturn, Jeff Hardy. And now here is the other thing that was going to be a part of this. Former WCW employees are going to be a part of the King of the Ring tournament. Basically given the opportunity to not only show what they can do, but also enter into the Regal announces that the final three in the tournament will fight former WCW stars to advance. Now, don't get me wrong, this does bring up the question of why is Regal letting WWF guys fight WCW stars to possibly advance in the King of the Ring tournament, a WWE tournament? Well, that's going to start bringing up the question of where does Regal's loyalty lie? And it also raises the question of, okay, WCW's here, but how does everything fit in? Who fits where? How does it go? Blah, 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 blah. Because everything's not going to be solved in the matter of weeks. It's going to take a while for everything to be solved and everything to be ironed out. Because fact of the matter is, there's a lot that goes into this. Where's Gregory Helms? Oh, there he is. There's a lot that goes into this, and by that I mean I'm not going to make it just cut and dry like it was with the WWE, where, 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 you know, all the WCW guys come in at once, they start attacking, they interrupt matches, then ECW jumps in. You know, it's a clusterfuck, and that prevents anyone from getting over. So you might say, okay, then how is it an invasion? Well, there's a shitload of WCW guys coming in, but they're not fighting all of WWE, I guess. Which I believe will allow, you know, certain people the ability to stick out a little bit better than it would if, if they all came in together, which is one of the reasons why I made Canyon debut on a random episode of SmackDown by attacking Raven, tapping into the history that those two had, which gives Raven more TV time, which gives Canyon an opportunity to stick out, and gives Raven, well, which it also gives Raven an opportunity to stick out, rather than being a face in a group, they're separate. And that's why everybody's not coming in together, because that defeats the purpose of bringing in guys like Booker T or Diamond Dallas Page or whoever, because if they're all going to be meshed together, then what's the point of bringing them in if they're just going to be a face in a group? You know, and you might say, oh, blah, 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 blah. You know, you might say, oh, why bother bringing them in if you're not going to have them... You know what I mean? Why bother bringing them in if, you know, this is the case or that's the case? All I'm gonna say is that there's a bigger picture here than just one of, it's a clear cut, oh, everybody's invading, everybody's invading, everybody's invading. You know, it's not one of such clear cut, one that's so clear cut in nature. Let's put it that way. And because of that, it opens the door for things like Canyon to come in by himself. You know, the reason why I keep going back to Canyon is because I like the fact that Canyon came in by himself. You know what? How about that? So Eddie will make an open challenge, which means his European title will be on the line on this show, which also allows me to break up, the King of the Ring tournament matches, and it gives a little bit of a flavor to that. And you might say, oh, but it's still, you're still missing a person. Honestly, I disagree, because I frankly see it as, I'm not missing somebody, it just gives me the ability to avoid going right into it. It allows me to give the WCW guys a tryout, like I did, get a little bit more matches, but also still really go from take a different route with the King of the Ring finals. Because the King of the Ring finals, for the first time ever, is a triple threat because I'm an idiot and miscounted the amount of people that were in the tournament. And that's why there's 3 people in the finals, not 2 like you're supposed to have. But now the tough selection is who wins. See, I believe that the winner of the King of the Ring should get something, whether it be a push, whether it be a higher standing on the card, more consistency, what have you, rather than just saying, oh, he won the tournament. You know, good for him, he gains nothing. Sort of like, you know, Mojo Rawley when he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, even though, yeah, fine, oh, a Battle Royal's different than a tournament. No, I disagree. I think in a Battle Royal you should get something from winning, like better booking or whatever. Or whatever, because otherwise it makes the matches seem meaningless. It makes the tournament seem meaningless. It makes the Battle Royals seem meaningless if the guy who wins it isn't in better standing after he won it. And that's why it's a tough choice who I'm going to let win, but I think based on past determination and past well, look, the 2 on the end are very like different cases, because there's a 10-year gap between, or an 11-year gap actually, between Saturn and Jeff Hardy. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Either one of them could be champion. Either one of them could have a bright future with the company, because both of them are solid workers. But here's the thing, and I mentioned this earlier on in this series, that I always thought that Test should have been given an opportunity. That from his time basically being fucked out of a major storyline by Triple H, never getting his revenge, never giving Triple H any comeuppance, even though Test could have helped the company as becoming a top babyface, because who's not going to feel bad for a guy who not only got left at the altar, but in the end found out that his soon-to-be fiancé was in it all along. You know, he could have given the company a top babyface when with Rock and Austin, in one way, moving out of the limelight, and the other way moving to Hollywood. But they never did that. But I, on the other hand, think that Test still has a bright future, and that's why he's getting the win in the King of the Ring tournament. So here is King of the Ring 2001. I'm also going to throw on some segments with the guys talking about the tournament and how this is unlike any other year. Saturn talks about how different the finals, the KOTR, are this year. And also we gotta add in the hype packages for Benoit, Austin, a match that I almost forgot in The Rock versus The Big Show. I mean, in no uncertain terms, I'm basically just trying, in no uncertainty, I'm just basically trying to figure out if Rock wins, where does he go from here? If Big Show wins, where does he go from here? And that's why I think I'm going to let Rock win, because basically I looked at the last week, and Rock suffered a big loss to Kurt Angle, which basically was enough for me to say, okay, Rock, you win. Test speaks on how different the tournament is. The tourney is this year, and how it matters more than ever. I know I don't have the show limits, the time limit on it, but I do know for a 3-hour show it's a 250 or 225? I forget. It's one of those. I think it's 250. It's really just 2 more segments. Jeff Hardy, Matt, and Test. Jeff is excited being in the finals, and Matt wishes his brother luck tonight. Okay, we just need one more segment, and that is Angle and Jericho, and that is for Angle and Jericho. And then I just want to think for 1 second. I don't think I'm going to do anything else because I want to keep it realistic, and by realistic I mean within the time constraints that are supposed to be on, but I forgot to turn them on before I did the show. So I want to keep it here and just run the show now. So the show starts with Lita and Chyna, as I mentioned earlier, and Lita is the new WWF Women's Champion, ending Chyna's long run with the title belt. And then we move forward with . with William Regal making the finals of the tournament official and announcing Gregory Helms, Lance Storm, and Shannon Moore will compete against the 3 possible finalists, and if either one of the WWF guys lose, then the WCW guy is in the finals. We continue with the Dudley Boys against RTC, and finally, Right to Censor comes up short against the Dudley Boys, as the Dudleys finally have the odds evened up with their brother Spike on their side for the first time. But either way, the Dudleys get the victory over Supply and Demand. Over Right to Censor. And now we move forward with Chavo Guerrero facing Billy Kidman in a light heavyweight title match, which if you're lost on this, Kidman debuted, I want to say either last week on SmackDown or last week on Raw, in a fatal 4-way number 1 contender match to crown who faces Chavo at King of the Ring. And it was, in fact, his debut in the WWF, which also marks this his pay-per-view debut, and unlike Chavo, he could not get the win in his WWF pay-per-view debut. But he still did pretty good. 66 is actually pretty good for your debut. Also knowing that he's a lower mid-carder and he got a 66, so that's shows an indication of how popular the upper card guys are in WWF. The handicap match with Edge and Christian ends with Christian and Edge getting the win over Kane, and actually putting in a very good performance. I'm dumbfounded in a way of how good Edge and Christian did. I'm very happy. Very happy. But now we move to the King of the Ring tournament's first matches, and that's Jeff Hardy against Sean O'Haire, with Jeff Hardy getting the win and advancing to the finals of the tournament. Now we move to Eddie Guerrero making his way out to the ring and letting everybody in the audience know that he might not have been featured prominently on the card or advertised, but he still wants to defend his title tonight, and that's why he's issuing an open challenge to anybody back there for his title. And it is accepted by Justin Credible, and Eddie and Justin actually go to a good match for the European title. For a match that had no hype behind it, I'm very satisfied with it. I'm happy. And now we move to Jeff Hardy backstage, who is excited about making it to the finals and getting this type of an opportunity. And Matt comes, then we see the camera shift, and Matt comes into the locker room and wishes his brother luck, shaking his hand and patting him on the back, wishing him luck in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament. Speaking of the King of the Ring, Test defeats Lance Storm in the next King of the Ring tournament match, with Test advancing and joining Jeff Hardy in what is a triple threat match for the King of the Ring tournament finals. And the triple threat match rounds out with Perry Saturn winning against Gregory Helms and advancing to the triple threat match later tonight. But now we move to the big matches. With the minor matches out of the way, we move to the headliners on the card and the blow-off between Kurt Angle and Chris Jericho. 30-minute Iron Man match to find out who is indeed the better man. 91. Kurt Angle defeats Chris Jericho. 30 minutes elapses, 2 falls to 1, and Kurt Angle is officially the better man between Jericho and Angle. But this feud ends, and Jericho is still the Intercontinental Champion, and Kurt Angle comes out smelling like $1,000,000, as does Jericho, which is something very difficult in a feud like this, especially when one of them are champion. And now we move to the pre-match interviews with Saturn and Terry talking about the King of the Ring finals and how different this year is than other years because it's a triple threat match to crown the King of the Ring as opposed to a traditional singles match. And speaking of the big matches, as Siri interrupts me, and actually surprisingly took every word that I said, we have one more stop before the finals of the King of the Ring, and that is The Rock and Big Show. And I don't know where Rock gets a 98 in-ring performance, pulling it out of his ass, but either way, this match does really good and defies expectations. But either way, The Rock gets the win, and another feud is over. And now, much like Jeff Hardy and Saturn, Test talks about how different this year's tournament is, and how that means that this is, since it's the first triple threat match to crown the King of the Ring champion, it will be the one that matters the most. And it does for Test, because Test is crowned the 2001 WWF King of the Ring. And having picked up the win, becoming King of the Ring, Test is now celebrating in the ring his victory. I don't need to explain that again, why I picked Test, but, I have my reasons. Benoit and Austin. Now we move to the main event. I'm a little disappointed with this match. I mean, yeah, fine, an 80's good, but when you have two guys pulling out that, it should have gotten around what Angle and Jericho did. But I guess it's also good that I didn't choose to have Benoit win. So, either way, Austin keeps his victory, gets a successful title defense, number 3, as WWF champion, and will be champion for another day, as King of the Ring 2001 comes to a close on a, some might say, lackluster note, but I would say a solid note because it could have been worse. But either way, the pay-per-view that has been almost 4 months in the making has finally arrived and will signal the return of this Let's Play series as I try and get back to, booking 2001 WWF. With that being said, let me know down in the comment section below if you have what you would like to see now that this series is back, or if you have any input, ideas, or just in general feedback about what direction Rock, Big Show, and other top guys, or minor guys like Eddie Guerrero, or just incredible or guys like that should go in following this pay-per-view. Let me down in the comment section below. But if you don't want to leave a comment, you can always leave a like. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. Till next time. And before you go, do not forget to ring that notification bell to always know when a new video comes up on Wrestling Express. Later.